All right, this is Randy again. We're back with part two of setting an inbound firewall rule. In part one, I drew out and kind of mapped out what we're trying to do. We show the internet, we show our firewall, we show an internal host, a DNS server that we're wanting to answer for DNS requests that come from the internet. And so we're going to continue with that example in that we're going to now create the IPv4 and IPv6 firewall rules to allow that to happen. As we mentioned in part one of the video, or the first part, the firewall rule or the way to do this for IPv6 is very straightforward. There's no network address translation involved. So you can see here I booted into pfSense and I went to my dashboard here from here. But from there I go over to Firewall and I go right to Rules. Remember now you've got the two tabs. Now because this is a rule coming in from the internet, we're going to create that rule on the WAN interface. So I go to add, and if I can add at the top of the list or add at the bottom of the list, I'll add at the bottom of the list. The action, it's an allow rule or a pass rule. Okay. We're going to listen on the WAN interface. We're going to do IPv6 first, and so I switched that to IPv6. For some rules you can do both, but this isn't one of those. Because network address translation is involved, we're going to do IPv6 as one rule and then IPv4 as a separate rule. DNS uses both TCP and UDP, so we recognize that here. We allow that. Whoops, I messed up here. Let's go back and fix that. TCP and UDP. Okay, the source from where in the internet, if we wanted to be selective and say only this network or here or there, but no, for DNS it makes sense that we would open this up to anyone requesting. And now here's the destination. For the destination of this, we're going to go to a single host or alias, and I'm going to put in the IPv6 address here. See if I can paste it in. Oh, I did. Let me take the brackets out of that. Actually, that's not a very good paste at all, but it'll get us close. That's a paste from going to pfSense from the web browser. Okay, so there's our address, and our host is .100. From our drawing, that is our Linux DNS server. So 2620.2d. Okay, that's the internal IPv6 address for our Linux server, which is our DNS server. Now we need to specify what's the port we're going to use here. Now, if you know the name, if you know the port number, you can just type that in. But oftentimes we don't. We know the common ones, but we don't know some of the others. And so you can find them here in pfSense. You can find them by name, which is pretty handy. So 53. All right, so let's just review this rule. We can give some information here, which I like to do. I would say this is inbound DNS, and that's going to be, I kind of actually use like this, like an arrow to LNX. Okay, pretty much it, but let's review it before we save it. It's an allow rule, looking on the WAN interface, IPv6, TCP, UDP, both protocols. The source is anyone can make this request, any request coming to the firewall, and the request is destined for port 53, and we then redirect that to this internal host. Looks good, and that's really it. That's it. So I save that, okay, and then I would apply it, and then we'll see it added here to our list. Now, okay, so done with that. I think we have time here to do IPv4. So let's go do that. Now to do IPv4, we start first with the NAT rule. You start first with the NAT rule with pfSense because the NAT rule will automatically create the inbound firewall rule. So let's go look at that. Across the top here with NAT, we've got a number of different things. I guess no need to explain those, but what we're looking for is we're looking for the port forwarding tab here at the top, and we want to add a rule. Okay, so again, it's it's enabled. What interface we're going to listen on? We're going to listen on the WAN interface. We're going to listen on for both TCP and UDP. The WAN interface is our destination. Now here it's a little bit different. It's saying what is the destination port. So it's being a little bit more selective than the IPv6 rule. The IPv6 rule had this for the other side of the rule. It doesn't really make that much difference, but I just mentioned that here. It shows up right here. Okay, so we're listening, it's DNS. We're listening on the WAN address. We're listening for port 53, and now we're going to redirect it internally. And this for us would be 172.16.18.100. And then where internally, this is where I talked about in the earlier video about you could do alternate ports. You could redirect it some other place. And we'll show that to you. That'll probably be our last video for firewall rules. And again, we can just find DNS in the list. ABC eludes me. Okay, there it is. And that's it. And then here again, I would say this one would be inbound IPv4 DNS, and who's it going to? It's going to LNX. Okay, now this again is the NAT rule, and we need the NAT rule to then create the firewall rule. Just want to look it over one more time. Okay, WAN, TCP, UDP, WAN, DNS. Okay, our internal host. Okay, looks good. And I'll go ahead and save that. Now we do need to apply these rules, and I keep mentioning about it's really a good idea to also reboot the firewall to come in and check into test. So now if we go to our firewall, if we go to firewall and we go to rules and we go to the WAN tab again, notice that rule for IPv4 was automatically created, and it notes that here that it was from the NAT rule. So you kind of got to keep that in mind. You create the NAT rule first. The NAT rule then automatically creates the inbound firewall rule for it. So we're done. We've done both our IPv6 and our IPv4. And then the next thing to do would be now to test those. But I'll go ahead and wrap up this video, and then our next video will be then looking at using alternate ports. All right, so we'll catch you on the next video.